Betsy and Thomas here for the American Intelligence Media. Thomas, you come again with another great reveal. What are you telling the folks today? And I know you're going to talk a mile a minute. I won't interrupt you. But for folks who want to follow along, I've posted the article in the description box below.
Well, Betsy, we're laughing because now it seems as if people are waking up. Mueller's pathetic indictment of 13 unindictable Russians and 3 unindictable Russian companies is a joke. It is blasted everywhere. And so we wrote a little article, but it wasn't shocking or revealing the first part of it, but the second part about who really planted those, the Global Engagement Center, that's shocking.
Well, let's back up because folks may not know about that. Okay.
I'm going to go there. But first, let's just frame this. 13 Russians. Well, oh no, what happened was Mueller wrote another pathetic document that is almost equally pathetic as the Christopher Steele dossier, which also had, of course, 3 other dossiers mixed into it, which were equally pathetic. And so it was pathetic to the fourth power, the dossier. This entire 13 Russian indictment, 13 spies, Russian spies have been indicted, is a
Boris
joke.
And Natasha.
Oh, yes. I'm sure it's them because they are always there. If just Bullwinkle and Rocky could come and save us.
Ever since we were kids, that was the boogeyman. It was always Russia, the boogeyman.
Well, it was Natalia Veselnitskaya, and I'm sure that her driver was named Boris, who drove her to the Trump Towers. I mean, that's just a given. But anyway, this is pathetic. This is worse, maybe worse than the dossier, because Mueller, I guess, forgot that there was a Russian journalist who wrote an article about the Internet Research Agency, LLC, in St. Petersburg, and showed who they were, named everyone in it, and what they were doing, and that they had an American section, an American department, which constantly had, anywhere from 40 to 90 people working on the internet against America to spread chaos, disharmony, and discord, not to help Trump win. As a matter of fact, as is pointed out in Mueller's pathetic indictment, many of the things that these supposed Russians were doing were also against Trump and for Hillary. So it's a complete nonsensical, stupid indictment, and it's just embarrassing, but just absolutely embarrassing. The most embarrassing part is that Rod Rosenstein came out and read the indictment, the man who should be indicted, because we've just found out that he signed for one of the FISA warrants against Carter Page when Carter Page wasn't even on the Trump team, to use it to not only rig the election, but to steal from the president-elect's transition team, and then to attempt to impeach a president and or create a coup d'etat, a regime change, a George Soros purple revolution, as it's being called. These guys, Rosenstein, McCabe, Comey, Mueller, were all part of it, and they need to go to jail. And Mueller now is just complicit with it completely. So he's there, and as we said from the beginning, to get the low-hanging fruit, to get Paul Manafort to point fingers at Trump and to stay in his position investigating right through the 2020 election. That's what his job was, to cover up all the crimes of Comey, to give Comey immunity, which he did. And Comey is the biggest criminal right now in Washington, D.C. that has been unprosecuted. But it goes right up to Obama. It includes Hillary. It includes all of them. Thank you, readers, who made sure we got those names on the list. So we just forgot that the biggest criminals we didn't actually put on the list of the criminals in the different sections, whether it be the DOJ, the FBI, the CIA, the DNC, so on and so forth. So what we have shown is we did what everyone else did. They came out and they said, hey, look here. This journalist shows that Mueller's investigation is years behind. He's naming people who were in that IRA, the Internet Research Agency, in 2014, before the election. None of those people are there now because they've now interviewed that journalist who was doing the study in 2013. He wrote it all up. It went to the New York Times. Mueller stole it and tried to use it, that along with Dude Zuckerberg's information that he gave him, and they tried to concoct a finger pointing at the Russians, basically to say, yes, you see, we were right. There was Russian meddling in the election.
So Mueller's got all these high-powered, highly paid attorneys working with him on the special counsel, right?
Yes.
Okay, so they're sitting around the table and they're going, oh man, we got to find something. And none of them, they don't have anything. They probably don't even know how to research. So what they do is they pull out an old article from 2014. I think I even saw a publication somewhere, again, maybe a repeat in 2015. They pulled that piece from the New York Times, the fake news site, and they massaged it, and those high-powered attorneys, highly paid attorneys on the special counsel with Mueller, created an indictment that's nothing more than another PP dossier.
Yeah, it looks exactly like Nellie Orr wrote it. It's so pathetic.
I know when you were reading it, I heard you complain that it sounded like a terrible romance novel or something. It sounded like a cheap and tawdry spy novel.
Oh, it is. And it's the worst because anybody can disprove it. What they took was the evidence that was connected to the 2016 joint report on Russian election interference, which had been going on for years. And then the report came out in 2016 to basically say, yes, you see, the intelligence community has proven that the Russians have rigged the election, and that's the only reason Donald Trump has won, so we need to do the election over, and or Hillary wins. Let's just forget Donald Trump. Because we say Putin was on Trump's side, so we're going to ignore the vote. We're just going to let Hillary be the president. That is the stupidity that they have attempted to foist upon America for the last... since the election. It's utterly pathetic.
These people are truly off-world creatures to believe this story and try to perpetrate that story on the American people.
And even, I'm sorry to have to say it, but...
Well, go ahead and say it.
Ken Starr's interview, though in fact part of it was good, part of it was pure evil. Because what it insinuated was... there really was something going on.
Now, this is the Ken Starr interview he had recently with Maria Bartiromo, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And, 85% of what he said was good, but 15% was pure evil. Why? Because he insinuated that something really happened. It didn't happen. The only election meddling is Obama putting sanctions on Putin's oligarchic friends that is screwing up his election because they can't get to their money and they can't say that Putin is the ultimate oligarch in Russia right now because of Obama's sanctions put upon Putin because of fake interference in our election, which did not happen. And then they go back. Okay, let's go back.
Well,
part of this
go
report,
back, but make sure you frame what the Global Engagement Center is for first-time listeners.
We're coming to that.
Okay.
Sorry, the big reveal is coming in a minute, y'all. We're going to deal with what everybody else is dealing with so that you can understand that, and then we'll tell you what really happened, which we've already told you happened, and we've already named the people, and the connections go very deep.
Come on, let's keep going, because the Global Engagement Center is a big piece here that folks need to put in place.
First, the joint investigation, as its research, had the same research that Mueller just took out, dusted off, and put in his indictment. It's so old, those people don't work there. Those people did not, the people he said came into America did not come to America. And Ken Starr said they opened accounts, bank accounts. No, they did not. They opened PayPal accounts. He said that they came here, they penetrated America. No, they did not. Those are lies. We will never, ever, ever see a visa for any of those people. Why? Because we knew in 2013 who they were. Why? Of course they were put on the no-fly list. Of course they were called spies in 2013 because of the article that was written and then printed in the New York Times. Of course they were enemies of the state and they would have never been allowed to do these things. And they did not do these things. And if you look closely, you will only find stupid Facebook attributions. Remember, Facebook is the NSA CIA. It is a PSYOPs project working directly for the rogue aspects of the CIA, not just the CIA. We're talking about as evil as it gets. That's what Facebook is. So when Facebook gave them those statistics, and that's the only place they could have got them, Mueller could have got them, is from Facebook. That isn't true, excuse me. Global Engagement Center could have got them. But that's where he got them because he stayed far away from the Global Engagement Center, the true source of those ads that went up. But anyway, going back to it, he took the joint report. Remember, Mueller is the third investigation of Russian collusion with election and Trump. But the first one was just on Russian collusion, and that is the one Clapper said was correct. It was a piece of garbage. As we pointed out, it was saying Russia Today and Sputnik through the election. Nonsense. The second one came out and said the same thing and also referred to Russian trolls and Putin's Russian trolls, making an implication of the Internet, the IRA LLC, okay, the Internet Research Agency. I'm tired of saying it. IRA, the Russian IRA. Very funny that it's IRA. Anyway, we already knew about them. They'd already been fingered twice in 2 previous reports, and now Mueller comes out with that as the only evidence of Russian collusion. That is pathetic, pathetic, pathetic. What a waste of time. He should be charged. They should have to give back all the money, and they should drop the charges against the false charges they brought against people. They should apologize, and they should leave, and then they should be considered to be a Comey complicit conspirator in this coup d'etat.
They're enemies of the state.
They're enemies of the state.
Of the people.
They are active war. What are they called? They're called war actors in cyberspace.
They're traitors to the country. They tried a coup d'etat.
Cyberspace and every other space, sorry. But anyway, let's go to the Global Engagement Center. What really happened, folks?
First, explain to people what the Global Engagement Center is, please.
The Global Engagement Center was created by Barack Obama at the exact moment that Comey came back from the Democratic National Committee and said, we need to put up interference and reverse the tables and say Trump is Russian. And Obama said, oh, that's no problem. He and the same people, Susan Rice, Valerie Jarrett, Biden, Comey, and others, sat around early on, and Obama said, that's no problem. I can take care of that. I'll change up the counterterrorism unit, and we will create a new group, and we'll call it the Global Engagement Center. And because I, Barack Obama, in 2012 and 13 and every year afterwards, changed the National Defense Authorization Act to allow the Department of Defense Board of Broadcasting Governors, which usually broadcast propaganda to foreign nations, I will write in a clause, Obama said, of the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, to allow propaganda to be utilized in America against Americans as if they were war actors. So all Americans became enemies.
Yes, and we wrote about that back in 2015 to alert citizens that propaganda was now legal to be used against Americans. And that's why you saw all these false flags like Sandy Hook and San Bernardino, even, recent false flags. And by the way, folks, just because it's a false flag doesn't mean that no people die. Sometimes people don't die in a false flag, and sometimes they do.
Yes, so Obama said to Comey and the DNC, yes, no problem. Let me spend $60 million on adding a coordination center inside of the Board of Broadcasting Governors. Now, the Board of Broadcasting Governors now control everything broadcast in America and the world. Everything comes through the NSA to the Board of Broadcasting Governors, to the Global Engagement Center, and it is scrubbed, and it has these operators. It was led immediately by Obama's appointment. SEAL Commander Michael Lumpkin and his group went in, and they took all of those tools that was revealed in WikiLeaks Vault 7 that the NSA has, 40, 50 different tools that can go in, target people. Well, first off, you can do queries. So let's say that the Global Engagement Center was asked, did the Russians intervene in the election? They can go in, and Michael Lumpkin said in public that he can go in and use Google and Facebook, target anybody with any definers that they want. So he could go in, he could say Russian spies or the Internet Research Agency. Instantaneously, every account they have would come up. All 470. Then he could target them, as he says in his quotes, and his experts also say, and everyone knows this is true, because they touted this when it was created, because this was the militarized form of the U.S. digital service that was being run out of the White House against Trump with Eric Schmidt's help and all of Eric Schmidt's people. And it was supported by a $1.5 billion donation. The U.S. digital service was directly connected to the Global Engagement Center and Hillary's campaign center. Well, in the Global Engagement Center, if they wanted to, they could say, are there any Russians putting up ads for Trump? They'd have it instantaneously. Then they literally could wipe that account out. We know this because about a few years ago, Anonymous came out and said that if the United States government didn't wipe out the 100,000 terrorist accounts that they had found, that they would do it themselves. And they gave them a deadline, 24 hours. It didn't happen. They wiped out every single radical Islamic terrorist account in America with the push of one button. This is what the Global Engagement Center has as their capacity. We know it's Putin's trolling unit. That's what the IRA is. And so we could close it down. That's not a problem. We could attack it. We could also do the thing that Dmitry Alperovitch did from the Global Engagement Center. We could go in and we could send out a anti-Hillary campaign meme or ad, and we could put the footprints that lead right back to Russians. That's what Dmitry Alperovitch did, and everybody knows it. He got caught using old footprints, really old footprints, in the Ukrainian artillery scam, where he did the same thing as he did with the Democratic National Committee's server by planting footprints. He does this all the time. That's his number one favorite thing. It's always with him. The Russians, the Chinese, or the North Koreans. Always, always, always. And by the way, almost everything Dmitry Alperovitch and CrowdStrike has ever said was the cause of hacking has been disproven. He is the worst. He's nothing more than someone they call in to lie because he is a FBI undercover employee and has been for a long, long time, even long before he used to work with John McAfee at McAfee. He used to work at Trusted Information Services, the CIA operation that turned into McAfee. That's how far back Dmitry Alperovitch goes. So when we're talking about the Global Engagement Center, it has all of those capacities that the NSA has and the CIA has, and they planted, and we know they planted because Eric Schmidt came out and bragged that he did this. Zuckerberg came out and bragged that he did it. Twitter came out and bragged that they did it. We all saw that they did it. And do you think the Global Engagement Center, the militarized, weaponized form of this, didn't do the same?
You know, it's really disturbing to me, and I don't want to accuse him. I'm just setting this up that it's very bothersome that Michael Lumpkin was once a former Navy SEAL, and I have such a high respect for the SEALs. And here you have somebody who was once a SEAL who is involved in this Global Engagement Center trying to use propaganda against the United States people. I find it very disturbing. But then, of course, as you always teach us, as the conclave teaches us, look at people's background to get to really know who they were. And I find that at one time he served as the special assistant to Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel.
Anti-Trumpers, Trump haters will commit treason to make sure Trump doesn't get elected or that he is deposed as a sitting president. These people will set people on fire. They will kill people. They have. Loretta Lynch said, you need to get out on the streets and people need to die in the resistance.
You know what? The SEALs need to take care of their own, especially people that are doing this against the American people.
Yes, but he is a criminal. He is a conspirer. He needs to go to Guantanamo Bay. Now, what were they really doing? $60 million. Obama immediately trumped up a new agency, closed one agency that was supposed to be working against what? Strictly against radical Islamic terrorism, which he never did anything about. And then he closed down those efforts, spent $60 million of his own money, Obama's money, to create a new agency that was weaponized against Trump. It didn't stop the Russians It didn't stop anybody. And if they spent $60 million and they didn't stop the most obvious Putin troll camp from sending these 470 Russian trolls, sending out $100,000 worth of ads, and supposedly creating marches both for and against Hillary, for and against Trump, and for and against Black Lives Matter. This was all over the place. As the vice president of advertisement for Facebook said, he said, I looked at every single one of those ads. They could not and did not affect the election. They were simply to create discord and chaos. And that's what the Russians always say they do. And the Russians are over there laughing, saying that their unit, which they only spend a few $1 million on, which also attacks all countries, not just America, that they feel very proud that they created so much discord. That is a lie, and that's what ticks me off so much. And I'm sorry, but people who are saying that the Russians are laughing at us, it isn't because of the Internet Research Agency, LLC's pathetic $100,000 memes, which didn't even focus on Trump. They are laughing because Americans don't seem to be awake enough to know that treason is going on in their country in front of their own eyes. And that's what the Russians are really laughing at, because they know this. We have lots of people following us in all kinds of foreign countries, and they're well aware of this. These treasonous acts were obvious from the time before. Well, it was obvious from the first WikiLeaks that came out that pointed out that in December of 2015, these plans were made by Podesta and Hillary. Comey was brought in. Everybody that Comey could bring in was brought in. And of course, the Global Engagement... Oh, let me just point out. The Global Engagement Center leaders, after Trump won, got so mad they quit. Because they had nothing to do.
What about Lumpkin? Where is he now?
He quit. And he's moved on to some other fancy job. But Rex Tillerson has now $80 million to spend on the Global Engagement Center, and he doesn't spend a penny because they know what it was. Another $80 million saved by Trump. They knew that it was part of the Obama attempt to commit treason by rigging the elections, deposing a president-elect, and deposing a duly elected president. Obama was at the heart of it, and the proof is as glaring as Susan Rice's text message or the U.S. Digital Service pictures of Obama and his crew working with Eric Schmidt against Trump. The evidence is so thick that Mueller has never looked at anything to do with what he has been commissioned to do. This is nothing more than distraction, folks. Nothing more than distractions. And Mueller, his investigation, don't let it close down. Please, please, please don't let it close down, because the longer he goes on, the more is revealed and the more of these shadow government deep state operatives are coming to the light.